Superpowers for good, shaping the fate. Investors and dreamers open the gate. Supercross stands loud, proud and true, building tomorrow for me and you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Superpowers for Good show. We're so excited to have with us today Lorde Astor West. Lord, welcome to the show. Or
Thank
Astor, sorry.
you.
We're thrilled to have you,
Okay.
Astor. We're so grateful. You're doing some amazing things as a tech entrepreneur, trying to help make the world of capital raising and investing easier. Uh, Using technology. This is an intriguing idea. You also have a WeFunder campaign right now, but your platform would go way beyond WeFunder and crowdfunding. Tell us about what you're doing.
So we are actually democratizing software development and automating the startup ecosystem. So it's a little bit bigger than just your average no-code builder or crowdfunding exchange. We've taken all of the things that are really difficult about starting a software startup, and we've kind of meshed them all together.
That is really cool. So let's talk about some of the specifics. Of course, I'm often talking to folks like you who are raising capital via regulation crowdfunding, and so I'm always especially intrigued in that. But let's talk about how your technology would make the capital raising process easier. And I think your target market is for SaaS entrepreneurs, especially,
Mhm.
right?
Right. So the way that it makes it easier is that typically when a startup founder is getting started, the capital raise process kind of starts a little bit later, unless you're really super lucky. And most entrepreneurs just starting out aren't really super lucky, especially with capital raises. In fact, a founder can spend any number of days, months, weeks, some even years raising capital, up to 3, 4, 500 meetings. And I know that sounds completely absurd and ridiculous, but it's true. And the way that our system works is that by creating an ecosystem that combines all of the elements of building a startup, you have that data element. And data is probably one of the biggest elements that's missing from early stage capital investing, in that when an investor comes to invest in a startup, they have to rely on the financials and the data that the company is providing them. It's very rarely in real time. And getting projections that are accurate are very difficult. So by having that data and that embedded funding feature as a part of our ecosystem embedded into our software builder, investors are getting real-time data that are linked to the performance of that startup's software and everything that they do. So what this does is it gives us the capability of visualizing that data, enriching that data, being able to provide investors with real-time performance data from the very earliest stages of that startup. And it can give them more confidence in being able to invest in startups they really love earlier across a diverse ecosystem of industries and founders and backgrounds. And it's really going to open up not only funding for founders much earlier, but less riskier investing for investors. And, not just your VCs, not just your institutional investors, but your angel investors and your micro investors who are looking to build a really great portfolio.
Yeah, this is really exciting to think through the potential here, especially as you talk about sort of democratizing this and making it easier for women and other folks who are sometimes marginalized in the venture community. I've never met a venture capitalist who is racist, but or misogynist or sexist. But the fact is that their historical processes, sometimes have made the process yield a lot of white men getting the money. And so I think what your process does will help to level the playing field, won't it?
Absolutely. When you have a system where we're relying on data. And we're not saying that we're going to remove all bias, because bias lives within individuals. But when that bias isn't built into the system, and when it's built from a place of um, equity, ownership, and providing more access, you have less excuses to not invest in the inventory that's there. So, one of the excuses that we often hear is, well, there's not a lot of inventory for different groups of individuals: women, Black entrepreneurs, people of color, LGBTQA. There's not a lot of inventory. So, how can we invest with confidence when we don't have very many founders to invest in? So, this is really part of, you know, not just leveling the playing field, but providing the tools and the access to be able to create and to be able to have access to more funding opportunities, but then also have that other uh, element of data. When you can rely on numbers and you see things in that investment portfolio that make sense, and you're not necessarily looking at just the founder, the team, the face, the color, the gender, the orientation. There's less opportunity to bake in those, um, I guess we can call them historic issues that permeate our systems.
Yeah, it's so cool the way that you're addressing this and kind of bringing this about so that people can have the uh, some of that pulled out and make it put the focus on the tech, the progress. And there is some exciting data that shows that women and minorities are generating better returns for their investors too. So as we break down those barriers, the results should be better portfolio returns as well. It's kind of a great thing. Um, Tell us a little bit about your history. How did you get in to this whole SaaS enterprise space yourself?
Well, it was a progression. I've actually been in software development for, and I'm going to age myself here, 22 years. I started my first dev shop. So I've been a software entrepreneur since the early 2000s. I started after the dot-com bust. And interestingly enough, and this is really cool because it really ties back into what I'm doing now, is I got my start at a startup, and I needed to fill a lot of roles. And I found that I could do that with software. And, through that process, I ended up getting into software development and I loved it. And unfortunately, the startup didn't make it, like most don't. The founders became, disinterested in the process and both went their own separate ways, and it didn't quite work out. But I was hooked after that. I was an entrepreneur after that. I tried to work for another company that was kind of similar to what I wanted to do, but I didn't really last there that long. It's not that I didn't enjoy it, but I really had this burning desire to build. I saw an opportunity to automate systems and processes and really close the gaps in businesses by using software. And I saw that holistically across the entire business. And so I gave my resignation on a Friday. I opened up my dev shop on a Monday. And 6 months in, we had our first clients. And 2 years later, we were 100% referral. And I've been developing software ever since. So I'm kind of like an OG software creator. And, back then we didn't have SaaS yet. That would come along a little bit later. But I did start building products. So, in with the custom development that we did, we started developing these products that would make it possible for us to increase our margins, decrease our costs for custom development, and build these really massive solutions that created a lot of value. And so we've really woven that into our transition into product development. And so when we transitioned fully from developing custom into full SaaS development products, we brought that idea with us. And so all of these years of developing cost effective solutions that did really big things, connected systems, optimized companies, optimized founders and employees, and brought all of these things connected together. are really what's led to what has become this OS that's automating the startup economy. And we love it.
It's fantastic, fantastic. As you think about, trying to draw people into your WeFunder account, or your campaign there, I think there's some, you know, the SEC and FINRA want you to be really careful about what you say, and I want to respect that. At the same
Sure.
time, you're certainly allowed to tell us about what makes you great, and so tell people how to find the WeFunder campaign, and why you think they should invest, leaving out deal terms, if you will.
Okay. So you can find us at wefunder.com/radhash, and that's RADHASH. And if you go to WeFunder, you can also search for it. We're under a number of different search terms, so we'll probably pop up. And we're also in the new section, so there's a number of different ways to find us. So what makes us really great and what makes us different than what's currently the on the shelf, so to speak, is a couple of things. One, we're not a no-code builder. We're actually an operating system that has the tools and the solutions that make it possible for you to build software without code. The other thing is that we're not a no-code builder. Most no-code builders are extremely technical. They're not actually made for non-technical people. They are made for developers to be able to develop software faster. And probably the biggest thing that probably makes us the most competitive, aside from all of the various options and programs and everything that's built into the operating system, is that when you build on Radhash and you launch your system, it's launching within your own private cloud. So you own your intellectual property, you have access to your code, and you own your IP. So this makes you incredibly investable. There's multiple revenue streams that are built into the system. You can create any type of different business models. It's all dynamic. You can invite people to your system. You can even build multiple systems. It uses infrastructure or uses code to build infrastructure in the cloud. So you don't need engineers to do that either, which is really awesome because the cloud can be extremely difficult and everyone has their own kind of methodology on how they build. And this really kind of creates a standard so that we can incorporate not only the ability to build your system, but to standardize it. And by standardizing the software, this gives us opportunity to collect data so that you can build your own not build your own funding platform, but I guess you could if you wanted to. You could, build your own systems. You can launch to your cloud without engineers. You can set up a funding exchange. I guess I should probably figure out what we should call that in terms of the funding exchange, but you can set up your own data room and create your own funding account to be able to raise all within one place. And, it's all inclusive. So you're really building and you're exiting within the same system. And, there's not really anything on the planet as far as we know. Our lead investor, John Norden, is always looking and always reporting that so far we are a novel platform. Some people do some things that we do. Some people do other things that we do, but there's no system that combines it all. So own your IP.
That's really cool.
Build your system, get your platform funded, hire your team, all within one thing. And if you're a solo founder, it's a really good way to get started because you really don't need anyone but yourself. And that's how we all start out.
No, that's great. That's cool. Well, we're so excited. We're here with Lorde Astor West of Radhash. We're talking about her great business, SaaS business. I love seeing women, especially in tech, succeeding in leadership roles. It's a great reminder of their tremendous capacity, sometimes overlooked in the Silicon Valley and venture capital worlds. And so it's great to see Astor succeeding. But stick around. When we come back with Astor, we'll be talking to her about her superpower. You don't want to miss this.
Join us at the 5th Annual Reggae and Crowdfunding Conference June 20th at the prestigious Westchester Country Club in Rye, New York. This year, we're expanding our focus to include crowdfunding deals, covering online deal marketing tactics. Visit reggaeconference.com to learn more. Save 20% with code SUPER20.
Want to learn from the world's great changemakers? Find your superpower. Subscribe to the Superpowers for Good newsletter at superpowersforgood.com. Make your strengths into superpowers that will change the world. Join the super crowd today. Superpowers4good.com.
Hope to raise money from the impact crowd. Good investors are as interested in community, social or environmental impact as you. Connect with Funding Hope, an SEC-registered FINRA member crowdfunding portal to learn how to raise capital from the impact crowd. Scan the QR code now.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here today with Lorde Astor West of Radhash. We're talking to her about her incredible SaaS tech business. This is kind of cool stuff, but we're going to shift gears now to talk to her about her superpower. So stick around. You don't want to miss this. Astor, you really are doing some amazing things. You had a stellar, spectacular career. You're a leader in the space. You're a pretty amazing human being. What is your superpower?
I think as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to have several because you wear so many hats. But I think that if I were to name just one, it would be tolerance for pain.
That is an incredible superpower. I bet there's a great story. Let's dig into this. Can you think of an example of a time when you really had to tolerate some pain in order to accomplish something? I bet you can.
Yeah, I mean, when you're an entrepreneur or you're building a startup, it's constant pressure. And so think about, and maybe it's been since you were a kid, but the last time you had like a rug burn, something that was just irritating and kind of just always there. You can't really do anything about it, but it's a constant, kind of constant wearing down of your psyche. And so, this puts a lot of extreme pressure, and every founder goes through this. There's no founder. It doesn't matter how much you hear on social media about balance and cold plunges and 4:30 a.m.s. There's no balance in an entrepreneur's life. Maybe when you, at some point, if you stop pushing the envelope and your company is running like a flywheel, but it's pressure. And there's always something around the corner. In fact, today when I was writing on social media, I made a comment about, how even when you're winning, it feels like you're losing. And entrepreneurs are constantly, it's internal, it's external pressure. And so it's not any one thing, it's not any one story. It's a culmination of just years and years and years of having to diligently pursue something that most people are probably going to think are crazy, that you'll have very little support for, so you have to have, a mental toughness also, and a persistence that is really difficult for the average person to cultivate. I don't know if it's learned or if it's born in or, whatever it is, but constant pressure is pain. And you have to be able to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's really, frankly, it's kind of a scary reality, I think, for people who are contemplating entrepreneurship, right? To be thinking about that pressure cooker and the pain. That said, you kind of said you're not sure if it's something that's learned or inborn, and there's something, I'm sure, to that. But if you were to think about things that you could do to cultivate that strength, to build on it, suspecting that everyone has some ability to do this, how could you increase it? Can you give us some tips on how to lean into that and strengthen your ability?
Yeah, you just have to roll. You have to roll with it. You know, something unfortunate happens, you just have to let it slide off your back. You know, you can't dwell on it. You can't really give any credence to it. If it's a real big issue, you need to find a way to either fix it or ensure that it doesn't happen again. It's really about being unflappable. You need to have the diligence and the perseverance to know that at any second it can come crashing down. Everything. And there have been times in my career where everything came crashing down completely. And quite honestly, I think if it were not for that strength and that tenacity and the ability to just kind of work through some of the most dastardly and horrible, like the worst possible thing that you can happen will happen. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with your worst nightmare coming true and then getting right back up and being completely fine with it. You know, picking yourself up, not dwelling on it, not, cry and work and, just realize that you're alive. You're probably going to get through it. And if it's so horrible that it takes you out, you can always start again if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, well, that's a great insight. It's so hard, I think, for entrepreneurs to communicate how difficult this is at times, and yet that ability to overcome, to tolerate, to endure, it's vital to the success of entrepreneurship. It is. So I appreciate you sharing your insights about this. It's just vital. Before we wrap up here, I wonder if you'd just take a minute or two and tell people again how they can connect with you, maybe on social media or elsewhere. If you're open to it, share your email, uh, remind people how to find you on WeFunder. If people are interested in developing on your platform, I know you've got some beta customers now. Talk to us about how to sign up. Kind of walk us through all of that stuff before we wrap up here.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up the betas. We're getting close to 200 betas, and this is a closed beta. We're utilizing it for training our machines and making the system more resilient for individuals who are looking to build on it. You can find me on LinkedIn, Lorde Astor West. You can Google me if you can't remember that. There's not too many of us out there. I don't think any. I am absolutely open for connections if you can deal with my spicy content. It's not always the best, not always the nicest, but it is always authentic and you always know what you get. My email is astor@radhash.ai, RADHASH.ai.
Fantastic. Well, again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, and I want to wish you every success in your efforts. It's so cool what you're doing, enabling faster, better entrepreneurship, especially in a way that removes some of the bias and the archaic systems that inadvertently screen out people from all kinds of different communities. So love what you're doing and want to see you succeed. So thank you very much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All righty. Now let's do some good.